Hello and welcome to the Jesus Witch podcast. I'm your host, Lena Elsaya Lee, also known as Lena the Jesus Witch on TikTok and Instagram. The Jesus Witch podcast is a show dedicated to opening the conversation about including Jesus in witchery practices. The goal of this podcast is to not be evangelical. The goal is to spread the love, light, truth, acceptance, and oneness that is Jesus Christ himself. Here at the Jesus Witch podcast, we believe all people are loved by God and all people are loved by Jesus. We believe in community and the power of fellowship. We believe in giving whatever you reasonably can to help your neighbor who's in need. And above all, we believe in the power of creating a relationship with Jesus that is authentic and unique to you. Join me for new episodes of the Jesus Witch podcast every single Monday, and be sure to subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting app.
This week on the Deconstruction Diaries, I have one of my friends here, Jordan. Jordan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Jordan. I am kind of closeted with my practice still, but you know what? That's okay. Like most of the Discord community, I met Lena through TikTok and loved everything that she posted, really resonated with me. Joined, started chatting with her and others more, and I started coming around, and it's been a good time.
It has been a good time. And Jordan and I have realized that we have a couple of synchronicities throughout us. Firstly, I'm a Taurus sun and moon with a Scorpio rising. And would you like to share your big three, Jordan?
Yes, I'm a Taurus rising with Scorpio sun and moon, so we're inverted.
The flip. And then we both come from the same type of church, the ICOC, the International Church of Christ. So it was really interesting to find somebody else who's on a similar path that came from the same background and similar stories too. Obviously, Jordan's going to get into her story, but I find it very interesting that this is it's similar but different, but it's really cool. And just having that same lens of knowing exactly what each of us obviously we don't know exactly what each of us experienced, but the same curriculum, right? Discipleship curriculum goes throughout the whole entire ICOC. You're taught it's basically the formula into making a disciple. So all the same Bible studies that I was doing for my conversion into the into the ICOC was the same ones that you were doing, with the whole the medical parts of the cross and the whole, oh my God, that was traumatizing. Valuable information to know, but traumatizing, we'll say. Just because of the way it was outlaid. Anyway, that's a whole other tangent we can go on. The cross one, that was the one I really, 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 really remember. What is sin, and having to sit there in that circle and admitting all your sins and all these random people, oh my
Writing
God. Anyway.
everything out as far back as you can remember. It's okay, sure. That's
God. That was so
too much.
And us for Scorpio placements, that's pulling king teeth. The amount of shit I lied about. Anyway.
Just to get something on the paper. And I remember too, I don't know if yours was the same, but when I did the cross study, they had me watch The Passion, which I've never seen it. They're like, so you have to go home and you have to watch The Passion, and then come back and we'll talk about things or something like that. And then they asked me when I went back, they're like, did you cry? I was like, of course I cried, because I love Jesus. I don't for the sake of his sacrifice, I do remember it, but seeing it in the way that it was, I was like, of course I cried. But why wouldn't I? And they're like, oh, well, if you didn't cry, then we couldn't move forward because you're not cut to the heart. And I was like, what is that supposed to mean? Yeah, bullshit. Sorry.
Oh, that cut to the heart. Oh.
Sorry, trigger warning.
Trigger warning. There's going to be evangelical terms.
Yeah, sorry. I'll try my best to stay away from them, because I tell my therapist, and I'm like, hey, I have trigger words. I'll try to not talk about them, but
no, if they come out, they come out. I mean, that was part of the whole fucking encouragement. I had to rewire that word in my brain. And still, when I say encouraging or encouragement, I'm like, oh no.
I try to substitute it with uplifting at this point, but
Well, uplifting. That's an uplifting quote.
I feel so uplifted.
That's an uplifting Bible verse. I like that. Oh, that's
Yeah.
better. That's encouraging. Anyway, we got a little bit into that with the tangent there, but so what's your history with like Christianity and like what led you to need to deconstruct?
Yeah. So I did not grow up in the ICOC. I actually did not grow up going to church. I started going to church when I was 17 when I got my license. But my mom always raised me to, like believe in Jesus, believe in the Lord. And when I was 8, I was at a private Christian school, and that's kind of where I first really encountered Jesus. And I thought it was the most beautiful thing ever. And I still do. I often reflect back on that. That's a huge like core memory for me. Excuse me. But when I started going to church at 17, getting more involved, it was like a small town church that I really got connected to, and I loved it, and I got involved with worship there. But when I turned 20, I moved out of my hometown to a bigger city because I'm an only child and my mom's a total helicopter parent. And I was like, I gotta get away to figure myself out. And then I was working one day and I met these two people. They're very kind people, which I'm sure you can attest. Like that's the thing, is they're the nicest people you'll ever meet, right? But um so I met them and it was almost Easter and I was actively looking for a church. I was like, I just, I don't know anyone down here except my friend who I live with. I want to belong to something, or at least try to. And this was like, oh my gosh, what year is it? 20. It was 10 years ago now. This is wild to me. But they invited me out to their church because I did make it kind of a thing on Sunday mornings because I was working Sunday mornings. I was like, hey, this is a weird question, but do you happen to go to a church? Because, the post church lunch rush, I was working in a restaurant. And then they invited me out. So, sorry, ADHD moments. Oh my goodness, excuse me. But I
It's okay.
finally
I call
go.
those Sims resets. Like
Sims,
you know how like
that's
the Sims
perfect.
kind of like just take a second to like go back. Yeah, that's a Sims reset.
That's so validating. Thank you. I love that though. Um, so yes, I go to church and the rest is kind of history with the ICOC. I was in the ICOC for about 4 years and um I knew I needed to leave sooner. I can't What was my moment, my I need to leave moment? Because I know you had one. I feel like there were so many. Honestly, I think my biggest like I need to get out, why did I do this moment was after I got baptized in the church. That was another thing too, was in my studies because I was baptized when I was 17 at this at my church, my hometown church. And they were like, oh well, the SCOC, the people I stayed with, they were like, well, you didn't stay to the Bible, so the baptism didn't count. I was like, well, okay, whatever, but sure, whatever you say, you're more knowledgeable than I am. And that's the thing too, is as you know, they're so good at manipulating like the the holy text and just everything and anything. And so after I got baptized, I had the follow-up study and they gave me all these rules. Just, like you can't wear this to midweek because you might tempt a brother, or trigger warnings. You can't date outside of the church. And that's when I was like, okay, um, we have a
And they
small.
conveniently wait until like after you get baptized to really be like, okay, well here's the rules of the church.
Yes, here's the kicker. It's like you couldn't tell me this before I agreed to sign up, because and I feel like that's part of the manipulation tactic too, is just like, okay, we'll do this, we'll get them in their we'll get them rooted and then we'll tell them the rules. So it's just, where were the terms and conditions during the first study? And so you know the ins and outs of the ICOC. But yeah, my I need to leave moment was the day after I got baptized, but I stuck around because I wanted to belong to something and just have a community, which I still have really close friends that I was in the church with, but we all ended up leaving kind of one after the other out the door. And
Good.
yeah, and then in 2017 is when I I met uh I met my boyfriend, who I'm still with, and he wasn't in the church. I met him, and then they didn't find out about him, but I just was open, and I had said, yeah, I met somebody, and people I never talked to started talking to me. They're like, hey, do you want to go get coffee, or do you want to go on like a prayer walk? I was like, oh my gosh, they think I'm sinning, or whatever the logic was. And
Yep.
yeah,
Oh my
so that
gosh.
was,
Wow. That triggered a memory. I
oh,
remember
sorry.
when,
Okay.
no, like that's fine. For me, it's not like a bad thing. I like remembering these things because like, it confirms my decision to leave was smart. Two, like the more I remember these things, the more like I can like be like, okay, well, that's a little piece of trauma in me that I didn't realize I had. So now that I can face it, I can let go of it. And also three, like I truly believe that a big part of me being in the ICOC personally was so that I can come on and do like this work that I do now. Because
Yeah.
a lot of things cascaded for me, and I not for nothing, like I always loved Jesus before I went into the ICOC, but I never knew how to like read my Bible. I never knew that the Bible was important. I never knew like any of the things that like I actually know now. And the ICOC was a big domino for me. So for me, it's not like it's as much as it's traumatic. It's like kind of like, oh wow, I'm glad to remember these things because then I can like process through it, sort of thing. But I remember my
Now, a quick break from this week's episode of the Jesus Witch podcast to talk about a few ways you can help support the show. One way you can help support the creation of the Jesus Witch podcast is to become a supporter of us on Patreon. On our Patreon, there are 4 different tiers that you could choose from, and they're all named after tarot cards. We have the Fool, the Magician, the Hierophant, and the High Priestess. In the Fool tier, you get early ad-free episodes of the Jesus Witch podcast, extended show note pages when available, Christian tarot grimoire pages, and access to our monthly community oracle reading. In the Hierophant tier, you get everything from the Fool tier, tarot spreads to help your connection with Christ, Spirit, your higher self. I also like to put out new tarot spreads for each full moon or new moon, wheel of the year, holiday, and zodiac sign. In the Magician tier, you also get 1 Bible-based spell grimoire page each month. This teaches you how to incorporate the Bible into your own spell practice. In the Hierophant tier, you get everything from the Fool and the Magician tiers, as well as a Happy Mail package from me every single month with the ingredients to make a spell, as well as an extra Bible-based spell page for your grimoire. And then you get access to our spellcasting Zoom each month where we do the spell that I sent you together. In the High Priestess tier, you get everything from the Magician, Fool, and Hierophant tiers, as well as an extra Bible-based spell from the Sun and Moon Oily Co. in your Happy Mail package each month, and a one-on-one Zoom call with me every single month to discuss your practice, how you're growing, and any suggestions that I could give to you to help you on your path. Patreon tiers start at $6.66 per month, and you can find the link to that in the show notes page. Another way you can help support the show is by shopping at my Etsy shop, the Sun and Moon Oily Co. Over on the Sun and Moon Oily Co., I offer Bible-based spell oils, ritual bath salts, Jesus Witch or Christian Witch specific mystery boxes, and custom spell oils. Over on my Etsy shop is where you can also book different types of readings with me. I offer tarot readings for your inner child, channel messages from Jesus or from Lilith. I also have a listing for general tarot readings. You could grab a soul contract reading between yourself and another person, or yourself and a deity that you're working with or curious to work with, or even grab an astrology reading for yourself or an astrology reading for your kiddos to help you parent them better and more effectively. There's also Jesus Witch merch on my Etsy shop and so many other things that I am planning on adding to my shop. So head over to the Sun and Moon Oily Co. to check that out. Another thing you can do to support the growth of the Jesus Witch podcast is join our Discord community. The Jesus Witch Church is our free 18-plus Discord community where we host Jesus Witch church services and moon circles. This is your place to ask all Jesus Witch or witchy questions in general and make some really awesome friends. You can find the link to our church in the show notes page. Another free way you could support the Jesus Witch podcast is by sharing this show with a friend and rating it on whatever podcasting app you're using with 5 stars. Leaving us a nice review really helps get the word out about the show, and don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting app. Another thing you could do to help the creation of the show is send a donation to the Jesus Witch podcast via Cash App or PayPal. It takes a lot of time and effort for me to create the Jesus Witch podcast, and getting donations helps me get the support and help that I need to be able to create this type of content for you. Donations also help keep this podcast free to everybody, so if you love this show and the information that's being put out there, please consider sending a donation to my PayPal or my Cash App. The username on both is the Jesus Witch Podcast, but the link for both of those can be found in the show notes page. And the final way that you could help support the creation of the Jesus Witch Podcast is by sending me a gift. In the show notes page, I have the link to my Amazon wish list. Everything that I put on this wish list was put there to help create content for you. Simply put, buying things off of this Amazon wish list helps me so that I don't have to purchase them myself, so I can put more of my resources in towards making the Jesus Witch Podcast. If you would like to support the Jesus Witch Podcast by buying me a gift or in any other way, you could find all the links to everything mentioned in this ad in the show notes page. Now let's get back to the show.
Oh, the pastor's wife, the church leader's wife. They don't call them like a pastor, a speaker, a preacher. What the hell do they call them? The church
Just
leader?
just like church leaders, I guess. They don't even call them pastors or speakers. It's just say, well, because remember how it was kind of like a weird tier system.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And that's why I'm like, I was literally asking you because I'm like, did you get clarity on that either? Because like I didn't ever. So like I was just curious. But anyway, his wife and I were walking around Target, and I had my baby, my Dexter, in the little, carriage, and she was telling me about how like, oh, like it's really important to stay in the church and like not date people who are outside of the church. And like obviously, like I had, Dexter's dad, I had Jack. And she's like, it's really important because, for your kids, so that he, gets like two Christian parents kind of thing. And like, so that you have a Christian man that can lead you into the whole thing. And that was, like, as much as like that was like a red flag for me, I was like, yeah, she might be right. Even though like I, Jack and whatnot, I'm like, she might be right, like kind of thing. Like he does need a Christian dad, like kind of thing. So that wasn't like one of those like moments for me where I was like, well, I should have left. But that is definitely one of those things that they kind of like push like this like weird, you can only date within the church kind of thing.
Yeah, and and I think it's also just part of the whole you know planting the seeds or whatever they call it. And just I do understand the principle of dating like within that community, so you do have those values, but just the way they pushed it, it was just so like, no thanks.
It's very closed off. And like honestly, I really feel like it's a population control kind of thing, where if you have
Absolutely.
two disciples who are making a baby together, the likelihood of that baby becoming a disciple sort of thing is a lot higher than just like one parent and then one Christian parent and a non-Christian parent, or whatever sort of thing. So I definitely think that's a huge motivation, is to keep the church growing from within, because they got to get that kingdom kid revenue.
Yes, I will say I think my most valued time though in the church was doing the kids ministry. I loved the woman who ran it. She's still like one of my favorite people today. I have so much respect for her. But just like, I mean, you as a mom, like kids are so, I personally don't know if I'll ever like have kids, but kids are just so special. Like I just truly like, and they're they're the future. And I really valued my time in kids ministry. So that's the one thing I think, well,
Yeah.
besides the friends I kept, the one thing in the church that I really um keep close to me was those kids.
And I feel like that's really the important part, because like how much importance Jesus puts on with children, and like having like a heart, like a childlike heart. So I feel like learning from them is really, really important, and that is like a really valuable thing to take away. I find it interesting that your like kind of like get out moment was like, oh, like right after, and you kind of like, but like what kept you like keep going? Was it that fear of like, well, maybe they're like right, or was it just like the community aspect? Like what made you stay for longer after you had that like aha?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think I kept staying because of all the fear-based stuff within the studies, and just kind of feeling like, I don't know if you ever had like really big groups in your studies, but like I remember my last one, there was like maybe 7 women in the room with me, and I kind of felt cornered. And um this will definitely resonate later when we talk about like the deconstruction and my faith now, but I just felt cornered. I was like, well, maybe they are right. Like they are beacons for Jesus, and I have to listen to them because I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't study the Bible, and maybe my old church, you know, did they misled me, and I felt I stayed because I was scared, because I didn't want to go to the bad place. And I I was separated from God, or so they made me believe. So I just stayed strictly because I was scared.
Yeah, I definitely I resonate 100% with that because like my aha moment, as we like talked before, was the Guy Hammond documentary. Uh, oh my God. And that whole thing really like spiraled me. That was like the first moment where I was like, oh my Lord, I'm in a cult. Because like, not for nothing, like I grew up in, downstate New York. I grew up in a very, like a progressive area of, especially like where, the county that I lived in, I grew up in a pretty progressive area. It was like little mini New York City. And to like be in my hometown, right? Where like literally not even a mile down the street was a church with a pride flag outside of it. To be right there and watching this documentary, I was like, what the fuck kind of dystopian society am I in right now? And
Mhm.
I remember like freaking out after that, but then being like, what if they're right? These like all the things in the Bible kind of like led me to believe that they were right. And I was a big like I read my Bible every day, like like I can't even tell you how many times I've read like through the Gospels or through like books like Ruth or um whatever, like my favorite ones. I can't tell you how many times I've read through them and I was like, yep, I'm very convicted by these. But then all of a sudden the words started like changing to me. And I'm like, well, like, does this really mean that, or could that mean like this sort of thing? And that was a big part of it too, is just like continuously reading the Bible. And then I was exposed to God is Gray on YouTube. I don't know if you know who she is,
Oh,
Brenda. She
no.
she was really important at that point. The Yes Jesus podcast was really important. The Bible Binge podcast, even though that is a little bit more of an evangelical podcast, it was more Baptist. And I was like, well, they're saved and they're not ICRC and they read their Bible. So why do I have to, you know what I'm saying? Like that was like the whole like thing there. So it's just definitely like a different, like a lot of like creators, but or a lot of different things that kind of like led me to be like, okay, wait, maybe I'm reading this the wrong way. But I just find it interesting that the whole that whole like the way that they really get you with the whole hell thing is like, oh my God, it's manipulative.
It is, and it's just I feel like I heard more like this like how do I say this? I feel like I've heard more like you're being bad, this is what's gonna happen during like trigger word, sorry, D times, and sermons than I ever heard, like, hey, this is, here's Jesus, this is who he is, this is all the good stuff. I feel like I heard more bad than
Mm-hmm.
good things when I was there. And it's just, I don't know how I don't know how we stayed through all that. It's just, it's so like upsetting, and just cringe.
Yeah. I definitely like I'll like think back on that and I'm like, Lena, you idiot. You got duped by a cult. Like I definitely have those like times where I'm like, what the hell were you drinking, girl? Like what were you doing?
Yes, and I remember my mom too, when I told her, I was like, "Hey, like I'm getting baptized." She was like, "Weren't you already baptized?" And I said, "Yeah, but this is different." She goes, "Jordan, I think you might be going into a cult." And I was like, "No, I would know." 19-year-old
My
me.
my mom told me the other day that she knew I was getting myself into a cult, but she figured it was better than like, other things that I could be doing at that time, so she just let it happen.
Oh no. Well, too, like going back to what you said about how thinking back to the experience, I'm thinking about that a lot just in general with other life experiences, not just the church, but any other kind of hurt. It's shitty and it hurts and it's really painful at the time when you're figuring stuff out. But I feel like you can reflect back on that and see how to help other people, like how can I help take this and use it for good? And I feel like that's what you've been doing through like your TikToks, all your content, and like yeah, you definitely helped me, and I know you've helped so many other people in the community.
I don't know how to take compliments.
Oh my gosh. What placement is that? Is that your what is that? Is that your Mars? You're like,
I get
oh
that
wait,
has
no.
to be the Virgo Mars because I have a Leo midheaven too, and that sometimes every once in a while somebody will hook the Leo midheaven. I'm like, thank you, thank you. But normally it's the Virgo Mars that's like, no, don't acknowledge the things that I'm doing right now. Like That's a Virgo Mars. But also to the point of like, I, as you were saying it and as I was saying it, like going through all of this just to help somebody else. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you help somebody else. It matters if you help yourself. And as long as
Mm-hmm.
you personally learn something and grow through that experience, whether it be like learning what your boundaries are, learning how to discern spirit, learning like what you're going to tolerate from other people, like learning like what you actually want in life, whatever that experience is that you've learned something, that's truly the most important thing. Because, as Jesus says, you need to love yourself to love your neighbor. So if you're not learning anything from your experiences and you're not growing through them, how are you going to help other people? And also, not everybody's called to help other people. So please don't feel pressured after listening to this podcast to like, be like,
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
to start a ministry and help people. No, you don't.
Yes.
You can just live your life.
Disclaimer. Live your life. I'm gonna make a side note off that. Like, yes, Jesus had his 12, he had his people, but for the most part, Jesus was a lone wolf. He did whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. So yes, listen to Lena. Don't feel like you need to go, overseas and start a ministry. Take care of you first.
Take care of you. Like, it's, not every, you're not, I mean, like, and that's one of the things that the ICOC, I feel like, ingrained in us. And I feel like sometimes I might fall into that pattern sometimes with the podcast, is being a little bit too, like ministry and help people and go share your faith, like sort of thing, because that's such a dangerous trap to go into. They teach everybody that our soul destiny in life. I mean, women, they teach us our soul destiny in life is to create more disciples. But then second to that, our destiny is to for disciples, share your faith, be an example of Jesus, like go out there and be Christ, so that everybody wants to come to the ICOC and share the ICOC far and wide, sort of thing. So that's like the last thing I want people to gain from like, Jesus witchery or Christian witchery or any of that stuff, is because like, I personally think that your practice can be 100% private. You don't have to tell a single soul that you light candles, that you do magic. You don't even have to tell people you believe in Jesus if you don't want to. Like, this is like, that's your personal practice. Like, even Jesus went alone to pray, and what he said in those prayer times is not recorded. He had his own
Mm-hmm.
private times with God. So why can't you have your own private practice with spirit? Not everybody. I feel like that's a thing about social media, and obviously like the whole baptize disciples and make members of many nations sort of thing trauma. But then also social media, where you see like every other post you slide up is somebody doing their spell work, somebody showing their tarot reading, somebody doing this, that, the third. So there's this expectation that if you're not sharing your practice, are you doing witchcraft, sort of thing. Like, no, you can have your own private practice. Not everybody has to shout it from the rooftops. Like, that's, anyway, sorry for that rant.
No, of course. Lena, I think that's the thing with you and me, is that like with our inverted charts and also just like our similarities, I feel like we could talk like all day.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if
Probably
this goes much longer than you wanted to, but
no,
yeah.
it's good. It's good. It's good. It's all good stuff. And it's important stuff. And that's like another reason why I really like was excited when you submitted your story for the Deconstruction Diaries, because I knew that we would be able to have this kind of like, because we have that similar viewpoint sort of thing, and then be able to like expand on that. And I feel like, as much as the ICOZ is a very nuclear type of church, it is kind of an allegory and an extremed version of a lot of different churches. And I feel like a lot
Yes.
of what you and I went through is a very similar experience to like what Mormons go through, or what, not to it as an extreme of an extent, but like JWs go through, or, like different, what's it called? Seventh-day Adventists. Like, it's very, very similar. The only difference with the ICOC that I've noticed versus like Mormons, JWs, Seventh-day Adventists, whatever, they're more aggressive with their baptize members of many nations and make disciples, sort of thing.
Yes.
And sorry, continue.
No, you're good. My best friend and roommate, she's actually ex-Mormon. So yeah, she and I have had these conversations, and she's told me like her experience. I've shared mine, but oh, absolutely, they're much more intense, and I feel like I want to say the word radical for some reason, but
Yeah,
yeah,
they
they're
are.
much more intense with their members.
And you got converted around college age, but you didn't get converted in a college campus. Were you in like their campus ministry?
That's the thing. So the region I was in, it was mostly like young adults or young professionals as they called them, the old elders and all that stuff. But they didn't have a campus ministry, but they tried to what do you call it? The southern regions had like all the big schools in the area, and they had a campus ministry. And I studied with these people, and then like this group in this region I went to, and then they
Mhm.
kind of, they didn't like kick me out, but they tried to like motion me towards the campus ministry. But I was like, but none of the kids in campus really know who I am, and
Yeah.
like they don't know the stuff I've told you, and I don't really feel comfortable with that. And I think that's like that's all my Scorpio, my 6 Scorpio placements, like get away. But
That is definitely Scorpio.
yes. And I mean, granted, I did make some really good friends in that, and we're still really good friends today. And eventually there was maybe like 5 of us in that campus ministry that went to the community college in that region where I studied, and they tried to build a campus ministry there, but
Mhm.
it never launched. It's gone now because we all left.
Good.
But
I mean, not good, but yeah, good actually. Good.
yeah. No, and it makes me happy because they're all like thriving, and we're all still close. We'll video chat when we can, and
Mhm.
like I'm super happy for like those friends of mine. But yeah, I did try. They tried to get me involved in the campus ministry, but it was such a hot mess, and I was like, this isn't working out. I'm just gonna still come to Sunday services
Yeah.
here, and you're gonna have to deal with it.
I'm gonna figure it out here. No, that's like that's
I was the sorry, go ahead.
the problem. Was that what you
I
were gonna
was the
say?
problem child. I was the problem child. Nobody
Well,
nobody will admit it, but I was the problem child.
I have the opposite experience because they wanted me to be in the singles ministry because I was young and I had a kid. And I was like, well, like I have Jack, so I don't feel like I'm in the singles ministry. Two, like I just my all my friends are in campus, right? And everybody that I grew up with is in
Yeah.
campus. So I want to be in campus with them. So I was there on all the campus events with baby Dexter, like just hanging out with a little kid. And I remember like being like it was like part of like all the meetings to like get campus ministries onto each of the what's it called, campuses, that's what's called, of colleges that were around in our area, and like that being like a really big thing. And like actually like one of the guys I grew up with, the guy who got me into the church, he now is the campus leader of one of the upstate churches, like further north than me, but he's now a campus ministry leader. So like, I was just curious about that because they're very aggressive on college campuses. The ICOC, that's how they
Yeah.
get a lot of their members, and especially like their non-Kingdom Kid members. I have noticed a lot of them coming through campus. Even
And
like
I don't
our
know.
connection, he campus when he was in school way back in the day. You know.
Mhm. And that's so wild to me too, because he's who I met in the campus ministry where I went. So,
Yep.
and I think it's so, I don't know if your campus ministry was like this, but all they did like in their campus studies were just, I'm not hating it all, or just the parables. And there's nothing wrong with them. It's like, everything Jesus taught was so important and so sacred, but I feel like they needed to kind of go deeper if you wanted to have a more impactful study with people that you're
Mhm.
trying to reach out to. But it was always, I remember there was one time too where, like the group I was in, we had these, like the couple that was like our leaders or our point leaders or whatever, they were telling us how like, well, you guys have heard the parables, but the people you're reaching out to haven't, so why can't you reach out? Or it was just all this guilt and a bunch of crazy nonsense. And um yeah, just I don't know, I just like, I feel like if you want to like try and make a more impactful study when trying to reach out to people, maybe just go a little deeper in scripture. I don't know, ask other questions. I hope that makes sense. But
No, that makes 100% sense, because like it was like a lot of surface level stuff that they would like bring forward, and it was, I feel like, just like these fluff verses that they would get people
mhm.
with. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember the parable of the lost sheep being a big one. That, oh my god, that was such a
That was always it.
flashback. That we would go around the downtown of my hometown and like ask people to come to Bible study. We would do like a Bible study in the middle of like the town. Like, I grew up here. I don't need to be doing this.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, oh my God, it was so much. And then I like the more it went on and the more events that occurred, I was like, why am I staying here? I don't need to be here. But also too, I think a part of it was because I didn't know where I was gonna live. Like, because I had no family in the big city. And I just didn't know where I was gonna live, who I was gonna live with. And I was like, well, if I leave, then it's just kind of messed up. But I was like, if I leave, I feel like all my resources are gone, you know? And uh yeah, so it was just a big ball of anxiety I was, and I didn't want to move back home. So, but I feel like moving back home under my mom's roof felt more safer than who I was with at the time. But that's why I was like, I need to leave in like 2017.
No, that makes a lot of sense. As to like why you like felt like you needed to leave, and kind of just give one to Dex. Um, Sorry, we're potty training. So he came to inform me that he used the bathroom, and anytime I give him a treat for potty training, he insists, because he's a Virgo, he insists that he gets one for his brother too.
That's so cute.
So he has to go give him one. But no, that makes sense. And I really do feel like they find people at these like vulnerable times. Like you, like
Yes.
needing community after like leaving, your mom's house. I was a new mom who like severe postpartum depression after I had my first baby. It was
Oh,
like
yeah.
horrible. Like it's normal shit. Normal.
Yeah, they
Um,
prey on the vulnerable, and it's because that's who they know is like they're looking for
yeah.
something solid and secure. We can offer that, quote, offer.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's a trap. It's a trap. So that's like I guess that's a really like decent piece of advice from me specifically, but I think you would agree with this, is especially if you're in a vulnerable place and you're looking for a church and somebody offers, you a Bible study, really research that church before you go. Like
Yeah,
you gotta really research that church before you go, because you
absolutely.
might be ending yourself up in something um a lot larger than life. And while you and I have fairly mild stories from the ICOC, there are people like I know this one guy, he lost everything because of that church. He was forced to move in with certain people because they didn't want him living in different parts of town. He had to like sell his car and go get a different car so he was able to like transport people to the church. Like his whole life, he had to quit his job and get a new job that was more holy, sort of thing. Like his whole life was completely uprooted by the ICOC and this desire to not, go to hell essentially, in this like manipulation tactic. And as easy as it is to say, like, oh, why would he listen? Because you feel like you're going to be internally damnated if you don't. You feel like you're going to go to a fiery hell pit if you don't. Like that's a lot. Like a lot of people have anxiety about what happens to you after you die, and then to be presented
Yeah.
with that, oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah, that's so sad. Is this somebody that you knew in the church you went to? It
No, he
was
was
just someone that you heard.
in there's like an ex ICOC Facebook group, and he's one of like the prominent
I think
members
I'm
in
in
there.
it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might be in it. I'm not sure. I'm in a couple.
There's a lot of like, and that's like another thing. Like if you're in one of these kinds of churches, like the ICOC, or you're a JW or a Mormon, or a Seventh Day Adventist, and you happen to like stumble upon this podcast, there are a lot of resources to get out and to get out of your specific church. There's Reddit threads for like every single one of those types of churches to get. I know there's an ex ICOC or XCOC, Churches of Christ, Reddit thread. Um, there's Facebook groups. There's like, there's anti-cult support groups and hotlines that you can find. There's a lot of different resources out there. You just have to like look at it a little bit, especially if you feel like that trapped like sort of thing. If somebody from those churches stumbles upon this, I have a feeling that some of the people from my old church listen to my podcast. So hi guys.
Ooh,
They watch my
hello.
Instagram stories, and they're like the first people to watch them. Like I'll post something and then I'll go like 5 minutes later and just go in like out of curiosity. I don't check my Instagram numbers or anything. I don't give a shit about that stuff. It's bullshit. But every once in a while after I post something, I'll look and it'll be them, because they also, I don't follow them, but they also follow me. And they're the ones who like first see my stories. Like, do you guys have post notifications on for me? Like, what the fuck? So weird,
They're
Jordan.
probably it's one of the two. They're either really intrigued by what you're saying, like maybe, hang on, maybe Lena's right, or they're just like, oh gosh, how far off the rails has she gone, or whatever
Yeah.
delusion they've created.
Yeah. I definitely
Yeah, no,
think
we
it's a
can.
mixture of the two. Um, but anyway, now that we've gone on 10 different tangents,
Hey, that's okay. I
it's
feel like
great.
it's resourceful. It's kind of,
It's great.
unveiling it.
No, I honestly think it's great. That was the purpose of creating the Deconstruction Diaries. I feel like people hear me talk too much. I want other people's stories and other people's opinions and all that stuff. Even though I did talk quite a bit during this episode, and I apologize to you for that, Jordan.
No, 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 no. This is the discussion. It's okay. We're
It's
even here.
back and forth.
It's red.
um, what does your faith look like now, and like what do you currently believe in?
Currently, so I like Jesus is like my main.
Did we
Um,
talk about like how you? I'm sorry, I'm going to edit this part out. But did we talk about exactly how you deconstructed? Did I
we
skip
didn't,
that
but that won't
question?
take. We did, but
Okay,
that won't take
my
as
bad.
long as her.
Leah, I'll like scrub all this out. After I said the question, I said to myself, Lena, you skipped a step here. Um, so anyway, so what did your deconstruction journey look like? What resources kind of helped you like leave the church?
Uh, First off, definitely therapy. Um,
Facts.
therapy is cool. I'm studying to be a therapist myself, so um, yes, therapy. If I need, and don't ever. This is just another shout out. If Don't ever be afraid to shop around for therapists. I've gone through 4 before I found the one that I've stuck with. So therapy's been a huge one. It's important to have somebody to talk to, that's has credentials. Uh, and at the time when I left, I actually ended up moving in with a couple of friends. And one of my roommates, she was super about like the universe. Like she wasn't religious, but she was very much about um uh believing in the universe and science from the universe. And I was very like, this seems interesting. I wonder what that has to offer, and I wonder how I can get more into that. I feel kind of bad because like she and I aren't super close anymore, and I think because she caught me at such a bad point in my life, I wish I could, apologize for all like the shitty behaviors and the outbursts I had, because she she was a good person, and she really is somebody I have to thank for helping me break out of the old patterns I had. But um I was a broken person and I needed to heal, and it's just unfortunate that she was involved in that. Well, not unfortunate that she was involved in that chapter, but it was unfortunate that that's where she caught me, I guess, if that makes sense. I just feel like I hurt her and I wish I could say sorry, but I just rambled. But so she was really into um, you know, like manifestation, putting stuff out there. I was like, I wonder how this works. And she had this book by, I don't know if you guys know, but or if you know Lena, but she had this book called The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. And I bought that, listened to it on Audible, and I like read through it too. I was um and it's a really good book. I recommend it for anybody who's trying to learn more about how, like, the law of attraction and how the universe like works. And it's super super cool, super good book. She's also a great author, and like that was kind of a huge resource for me. And then also going into going into crystal shops, metaphysics shops, learning more about like the energy, figuring out my own energy too, I think was a huge thing. And um that was kind of just from 2017 to like 2019 was kind of just a journey in itself, figuring that all that out. I did try going to another church when I moved out, but I wasn't ready. I was like, I don't feel comfortable here yet. I don't really feel seen. I don't know. Um so yes, therapy, Gabby Bernstein and her books were a huge resource for me. Therapy, number one. And 2020, when the world shut down, I ended up downloading TikTok, and then the algorithm worked its magic, and then I kept seeing all these tarot readings, and at first I was like, oh my god, tarot cards. And I was
Getting all scared by them.
I was like, ah, but I didn't I didn't know what to think of that because at first I think just like I think my that was a huge part of me that realized, okay, my guard is still up. I'm scared of things like this. Okay, wait, I'm just trauma washed from the ICOC. Um and I I just kept seeing it, and then I was really fascinated by how like seeing these readings from different accounts, different people. I ended up Googling like, okay, history of tarot, like how does it work? And um like my boyfriend now, he's when I started getting into tarot cards, he wasn't super about it. We don't really talk about it much because he has his own spiritual traumas that he has to work through. And um I'll come back to that in a minute. I need to get I'll come back to this. I haven't thought about that. Comma, as I should say. But um he so uh I didn't really know if I wanted to buy a deck, but then I heard someone tell me like, oh, like your first deck should be given to you. I was like, okay, fine, I'll be on the safe side and I'll see like whenever I get gifted one. And so last year my friend got me my first deck. We went to a shop and I was like, okay, how does this work? What do I do? And I I was trying to find that balance of, okay, how can I incorporate my love for Jesus and get rid of my spiritual trauma or try to work through it, but also incorporate this, what I believe to be true for me and my spirit, spirituality with tarot cards and just the universe. And I feel like I can't put into words, but it sounds so much more articulate in my head, but it all like works together truly. Like, okay, well, we have the universe and all, and energy getting reciprocated. Like, that's just facts at this point. And you know I feel like Jesus really reflected that and just the way he treats people and how his love is. So those were some resources for me. And then eventually I came across Lena's TikTok. I was like, hang on, this girl is super cool. I'll try to not give you too many compliments. I know you don't like that, but I was like, yeah, this girl is super cool. I got to figure out more about this. I was like, she's a Jesus witch. What is that? And I just kept kind of like lurked a little bit. And then eventually was like, I'm going to join the Discord, see what this is about.
Yeah. Yeah. The Discord that Jordan's referring to, if you don't know yet, which you should know, we've been doing this for a while now, guys. It's the Jesus Witch Church, which is our free Discord group. We chat about like everything there. We have channels for, general chat to like astrology, to crystals, to fandom stuff, to like, I don't know, the most ridiculous stuff you could think about. We have a channel for literally everything. Everything. And Charlie keeps it very organized.
Shout out to Charlie.
Shout out to Charlie for that. Because before them, I don't know, were you in the church before doing everything? Because before that, it was a clusterfuck. It was everything everywhere.
No, I wasn't. I joined when all the sub channels and stuff were pretty organized. So I guess everything was everything just kind of all over the place?
Oh yeah, no, because I don't know what I'm doing. Like for real, I don't know. It's gotten to the point where like any logical problem, I will message Charlie about it. I'm in New York, they're in Florida, so like it's a problem. Because I'm a problem. But anyway,
No.
yes. Um, but what does your faith look like now? I know we kind of got into that, but like, what is it like? What do you believe? What an abstract question. Wow.
No, of course. I feel like I think I'm still figuring it out, but I believe Jesus is the Son of God and he was a holy man, died for our sins. I still have that rooted in me, but I also believe that, it's okay to not call upon protection, but like, I think it's okay to again, whatever brings you inner peace and whatever you feel called, whoever you feel called to work with. Like, I still don't know how this works, but I still feel like now, like, well, earlier this year, last year, whatever, I felt like Archangel Michael was really trying to like be very apparent in my life, but I didn't know how this works. I was like, okay, wait, like Archangel Michael, like this is because I kept seeing like, I feel like everywhere I went, I kept seeing like cobalt blue and stuff. And I know like, I feel like I see synchronicities in almost everything. I'm like, okay, wait, this has to mean something. Like angel numbers and stuff. It's kind of like that. It's like, okay, like what's going on? And then, so that's currently what I believe in. And I think it's important to just, take care of yourself, whatever feels right in your spirit, your gut feeling. And, um, so yeah, that's personally what I believe in. Jesus is my main, and trying to, you know, figure out the whole thing with Archangel Michael. And, as far as like, other deities and stuff, I don't know a whole too much about it. I haven't really let down my guard entirely in that way because I cling so uh close to Jesus. Um and oh gosh, I need to go back and put this a quick resource for me, if I may throw that out there. Another resource was the Chosen series, which might be a lot for people to want to
Mm-hmm.
watch, but it's it really helped me a lot. Like the way that they portrayed the gospel and who Jesus is and that, like it felt like I felt like I encountered Jesus all over again when I first
Yeah.
watched it. Like, 8-year-old Jordan meeting Jesus. Like I cried during every episode. But that's another huge resource for me. It was a huge, huge breakthrough in my spirituality and in my practice and in my
I
perspective of
love
things.
that so much because honestly, I know a lot of like evangelicals who really love the Chosen series, but I also know a lot of witchy people who love the Chosen series too. And I feel like that's the one little like rainbow bridge that we have of like,
Hmm.
we can both vibe on being like, yeah, the Chosen series. Like if we were in a room full of evangelicals, that's what you bring up. It's the Chosen series right there.
Yeah, that's how everybody would get along. So
100%. Because
yeah,
it's
so
great. It's
I had
pretty
to.
factual. And the cast like looks like, for the most part, like looks like they come from that area of the earth, you know?
Yes, yes, and it's just great, like how they like portrayed everything, like just the way that like they portrayed Jesus, and like they made Simon this feisty thing that he really is. And Mary Magdalene. Oh, I'm still learning a lot more about her. Like I started reading um Mary Magdalene Revealed, I think is that the book, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which I didn't know was a thing. So still getting a little bit more into that as well, just trying to expand my knowledge. And um I think also too, uh context of the scriptures, like
Yeah.
okay, what's the context here, that which is something the ICOC didn't do. It's like, oh well, it's written, this is what it means. It's like, well, what's going on, like what's
Yeah.
the setting.
Who
And
is it? Who is it talking to? Who is it for? Where? What was going on in history? Like none of that is important to
hmm
the ICOC. It's just this is God breathed. Oh, that was the first one. The scripture is God's breathed Bible study. That's the first one that they do with you.
yes,
Yep.
the very first one, very first one. And I had to do a project last semester because I'm also getting a minor in theology. And I had to do a project where um one of the questions was, oh, like uh how do you what's a good resource for Bible study? And I had to reach out to like a pastor or something, but I didn't go to church at the time. I was like, I could probably reach out to somebody from my home church, which I did. And I reached out to the guy that did the teen ministry, and he told me it's really important to read different versions and translations of the Bible, and also just again, what's the context, exactly what you just said, Lena. So I just went back to the resource tab. I should have wrote this all down. But I feel like I have so many resources that I learned over the years, and as I'm sure you do
Mm-hmm.
too. But yeah.
That makes sense. But like that I feel like that works too because that's also like part of like faith today is like looking at Bible verses and like going back and finding context for them, especially if you're somebody who uses the Bible in your practice. Because you want to make sure that you're using the right thing in your spell work. You're not like pulling randomly from anywhere. So I love that. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I agree with like a lot of the things that you believe and like kind of just exploring is really important and like just
Hmm.
learning is really important. I feel like that's what we come to earth to do is to learn, so might as well learn, kind of thing. But do you have any final advice for listeners of this podcast, people who are deconstructing?
Uh, Always go with your gut. Definitely listen to um listen, you trust your intuition. That's almost always right. And, it's not linear because deconstructing is essentially healing, and healing is not linear. It takes time, and your feelings are valid. Don't ever let someone tell you, like something's wrong with you, or like you need help, or because we all need help. And I think it's also important to, reach out. Like, this is also me like offering myself as a resource, as someone to talk to, or someone just to listen. Like I happen to have a degree in psychology so far, so I like to help out any way I can. So yes, reach out, trust your intuition, and just take your time, take care of yourself. And as easy as it is, my biggest regret was isolating myself. Like, I just like hid in my room. I go to work, come home, hide in my room. And honestly, kind of going back to school is what was a huge uh like thing for me, because I feel like when I left the church is when like my depression and my anxiety just were like, here you go, here's your identity. I was like, oh God, please no. And finding passion projects and something to really like work towards. So yeah, don't isolate yourself, because that was my biggest regret, was isolating myself when I was figuring everything out.
No, I think that's all really, really good advice. Especially like following your gut, like listening to like what you think, getting like help is so important. Like, this is not meant to be done alone. Like, reaching out to people is so important. And speaking of reaching out to people, if you want to reach out to you, where can they find you on the internet?
Yeah. I kind of prefer to keep my Instagram on the DL, just because I have friends who, again, because I am closeted with my practice, I have friends on there, though they might be like, what's going on if I post that out there. But you can find me on my Twitter. It's Jordan Arcane, at Jordan Arcane. So it's private, but give me a request if you'd like. I'll probably accept it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, thank you, Jordan, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you being here and taking the time to chat with me.
Of course. Thank you for the opportunity. It was really good to chat and, dig a little deeper with this. And thank you for all you do. You're helping so many people, Lena. Again, I'm giving you a compliment.
You know what? I'll let
Take
the
it.
Leo midheaven take it. Thank you. Thank you.
There you go.